Okay, starting a webcomic sounds good in theory, but are you really ready to actually make a comic of your own? If you have some long-standing story in your mind or some long drawn-out idea of what you want your webcomic to be, or some grandiose story in your mind, it may not always be the best idea to just jump headfirst in and just dive in with this story if you don't even know if you're cut out to make webcomics or not. So here's a little piece of advice that I have. Before I get into that, the webcomic that I have out right now that most people that follow me have seen is Shadow Assassins. But that wasn't my first webcomic. My first webcomic, and I'm not even going to bring it up, it probably can't even be found at this point. But I made a crappy webcomic and I stuck it online and it got no views and no followers and none of that stuff. Like, no one looked at it. But the reason why I put the comic online was not to see if it would get watched or anything like that. I just wanted to simply see if I could make a story, draw the actual comic out, plan it out, do my panels and everything, and meet a deadline that I set for myself every week. And I failed at it. I failed at it. I think I lasted about 2 weeks and I already started missing deadlines and it started to become a strain. Not because though I didn't like actually making the comic, but just because on a week-to-week basis, I couldn't really hold up just creating a story on the fly and doing it that way. So I had to revamp how I actually did my webcomic, Shadow Assassins. And I started to plan out the entire story ahead of time. And I made sure I had everything structured and had a certain amount of pages out. This is building a buffer, and I already have a video on that in my playlist for making comics. You can check that out if you want to. I'm not getting into that right now, but needless to say, I've already run out of my buffer, but this is years later. But the point that I'm trying to make is this: you probably want to start out with a smaller webcomic just to sort of get your feet wet in it and then dive into your actual story. Just do a little test or make a couple quick comics. They don't even have to be real elaborate stories. Just something quick to see if you can maintain working on a comic and meeting your deadlines in the beginning. Just do it for about like a good couple weeks or so and see how you feel after that. See if this is really for you. Because I believe some people dive into webcomics and they may be suited better for, I don't know, like sort of story novels or stories with pictures in it or something like that. Not necessarily a comic, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But you could find that maybe comics isn't for you and there may be other avenues for you to take. You might not like it as much. Who knows? But just test it out. Maybe you'll find out that you love it more than you thought. Who knows? But just as a quick test, just make like a short couple comics, even if it's comic strips, just something to get used to the actual practice of making a comic, and then dive into whatever story that you feel like working on or getting deeper into making webcomics. And who knows, you might just like the story that you start working on, but it's better to test that out than to have the problem of diving headfirst into a webcomic that you don't really enjoy and you don't really like, and it's not gaining any traction, and you end up just giving up on it at the end of the day after wasting a long period of time on it. So yeah, just food for thought, just to avoid being one of those people that end up spending like a decade on a comic that they really can't stand and it's really gotten nowhere. I don't want any of you to be that particular person, especially if you're not enjoying it. If you love what you do, keep doing it, but I don't want you to regret spending a lot of time doing something that you never really had your heart and soul into. So yeah, just test out with a smaller comic in the beginning and then grow from there. But that's my little bit of advice for today. I'm gonna get back to work. I'm out.